Hey everybody, what's good? What's going on? JB here, back with another CyberInsight video. Today we're going to be checking out a new and free AWS pen testing website that has a whole bunch of different labs. We're going to jump in and take a look at one of theirs that's actually ranked the hardest out of all that they have. It's going to be focused on bypassing the metadata access controls that are on an EC2 instance, so that way we can steal the session token that resides for the role that's assigned to that EC2 instance and use the permissions that that role has to be able to access information that we otherwise would not be able to get. All right, so I'm going to hop over into another browser. We're going to take a look at this new CTF website. We're going to look at some of the specifics on how to get this lab set up, and then we're actually going to dive into it and see if we can solve it. So, as always, before we hop over and do that, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and all that other good stuff. All right, so here we go. This is Pentesting.Cloud. You see here that they have a whole bunch of different challenges. They have a new one that just came out, I think, today, dealing with Aurora. They have an intro challenge here. The one that we're going to be doing is a token of gratitude. From my understanding, they're going to be putting out a new challenge every week or every 2 weeks, something like that. So definitely go sign up. It's free. All you really need to do is download a CloudFormation template and install it in an AWS environment that you have. If you're using the free tier, you should, for the most part, not really be getting any type of crazy charges or anything like that. It should all be free. So yeah, let's hop in to the room here. We'll take a look at what they say. So this is, it says launch a template in US West 2 as pen testing admin. So pretty much you need to have a root or admin account within your AWS environment. If you haven't set up an AWS environment before, I'll go ahead and throw a link up at the top of the screen here for another video I did, which tells you how to set one of those up for free. But then once you actually get this spun up through CloudFormation, then you're going to want to switch over to the pen testing user account that's created in this CloudFormation template and try to solve the challenge using that particular account. I actually did this challenge yesterday, so I'm going to walk through the different steps that I did to go about ending up solving this. So you can follow along. I'm going to put a whole bunch of links for different stuff in the description, different websites and tools and stuff like that that help me make my way through this room. So if we go and we log into our AWS environment with our admin account, going to want to just go to CloudFormation. So once over in CloudFormation, you see that we have no stacks that are actually set up here. So we're going to go ahead and hit Create Stack. Select Template is ready. Upload template file. Then we're going to choose the file that we downloaded from the Pentesting.Cloud website. And we see that we have that uploaded there. Then we can hit Next. Now, one thing I will say is we don't necessarily want to look at this particular CloudFormation template yet. I would say hold off on looking at it until you actually get to the point where you might get stuck, because there are a bit of information in here that could help you and give you some clues as far as things that you should be looking at. At the end of the video, we'll actually go back and look at the template and kind of point out some of those things. All right, so we're going to go stack name, go token of gratitude. So then we're going to enter the IP address. So this is the public IP address that the particular box that you're on has. Then we can select any subnet and VPC, and then we hit Next. We can leave all of this alone. We don't need to do anything here. We're just going to hit Next. You can scroll down to the bottom, hit Acknowledge, and create stack. Now, while this is going on, let's go back to the website and take a look at the FAQs on this. The instructions might help out. So we're going to download the challenge file, which we already did. Follow the instructions. You need an admin account with full administrative privileges to end up running the CloudFormation template. Use US West 2. Pen test user will be added. Then once the CloudFormation template is completed, we actually have to go and create access keys or password to be able to log in with this. Then we're going to look for the challenge flag after going through and exploring some things. Challenges are designed around common cloud misconfiguration, security vulnerabilities, and security features. And then at the end, once we're done, we want to make sure that we remove any S3 buckets and folders and delete the CloudFormation stack. And then there's some rules here as far as terms of service, scope of resources. Do not try to pentest, hack, enumerate, or fuzz their website directory or resources. Challenges are designed to be solved mainly with regular API calls. Don't do any DNS zone walking or denial of service. Web scanner is allowed. Do not cheat. I should say that Pentesting.Cloud actually asked me to make this video, so we are not cheating here if you're following along with this video. So there we go. Okay, let's go back and see if that stack is done. Almost there, we're getting there. All right, and now we see that this is complete here. We're not actually going to dig into any of these things here because we don't necessarily want to see things. We want to actually log in with the pen testing user account and then actually start to do enumeration that way. But one thing that we did need to do is we needed to go and create a password for that user account. So let's go to IAM, users. You can forgive this. This is just an admin account that I have. So we're going to get into the pen testing user. Go security credentials. And we are going to set up a console password here. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up, and then we're going to log back in with this user. So I'll see you in a second. All right, so now we are back logged in here, and we can start to poke around at a few different things. So let's just go look at S3 right off the bat. All right, so that would be the CloudFormation template that was added, and we can already see right away we have insufficient privileges. And then we have a token of gratitude bucket. Let's see if we can see what's in here. So there is a flag.txt file. We do not have permissions to see certain things. Access denied, so we actually can't open that up. So let's see. Let's see if we can actually upload something here. We're just going to do a test document. Okay, and we name that as test. Okay, let's see if we can upload. Add files. We see that we can do that. And we can upload. Upload failed. Okay, so we are not able to upload that particular type of document. Let's see. So looks like we're a little limited with what we can do right here at the moment, but let's go take a look. Let's go to IAM. We'll go take a look at this user. Okay, we see the different users. If we go look at ourselves, so I don't have permissions to look at that. And don't have permissions here. But it is interesting that the name of that policy was, I think it was like read only. Let's see. Or view only access, which is definitely it's definitely looking that way so far. Okay. Let's take a look at roles, see if we see anything that kind of pops out here that might be interesting. So see if there's a IMDSv2 challenge role. So that's kind of interesting, and that's a role associated with EC2 instances. So that might be something that we want to take a look at, or it might be something of use for us to remember later on. So let's go take a look at EC2 instances, see what we got going on over there. All right, so we have one instance running. some security groups. See if we can see these. So web access. Okay, that's interesting. See if we can actually see anything here. It's not going to let us do that, but web access, I don't know, normally would be 443 or 80. Again, we're not gonna completely know what it is, but just descriptions can give away a lot of information. And single IP, maybe that has to do with the fact that we entered that IP, our source IP. Let's go back and look at instances that are running. Let's see what we have here. All right, so private IP address, public IPv4, so it's DNS, and it has a public IP address. Okay. It's Linux. So here we can see the actual rule that we weren't able to see before. So it's port 80 TCP inbound and my public IP address. And outbound is everything. Okay, good to know. There's a public IP address that it's using. Okay. Some token information. All right, let's see if we can actually connect to this. See if we can connect. And denied, so we can't connect that way. Session manager is not going to be good. I assume that SSH is going to be the same thing, especially because of the fact that SSH isn't allowed inbound on that ACL, so that kind of would be a moot point and can't do that there. Okay, so we aren't able to connect via the ways that we normally would connect for management purposes with this particular account. Let's see, can I stop the instance? Nope, can't stop the instance. Now again, I'm doing this, you probably wouldn't want to necessarily do this in a live environment. That might cause some issues, but hey, we're in a CTF, we're trying to figure out what we can do here. Let's see if we can reboot the instance. And we were able to reboot it. Okay, so that is good information to have as well. We aren't going to go ahead and terminate it. I don't think we necessarily need to do that. I don't think that there were any target groups, to spin this back up if there's any type of issues, no auto scaling or anything like that. So definitely don't want to terminate that. Okay, so what do we got so far? There's an S3 bucket with a flag.txt in there. We have an EC2 instance that looks like it has TCP port 80, so web access open to it from my particular IP address, and we can reboot the instance. So next steps would probably be maybe doing a little bit of port scanning to see if we can figure out what's actually running on port 80. I think that might be a good way to go. So let's go grab the public IP address off of this. And there's a few different ways that we could go about doing the scanning. If you had Nmap, you had Kali or something like that, you can do that. I actually don't have that up at the moment, but what I do happen to have is an instance of Nessus here on my computer. So hey, why don't we use Nessus? Why not? So let me log in over here, bring up Safari. Okay, so we can do basic network scan. Let's configure this. We can put that IP in there, save this, and should be able to kick this off. Again, this is not going to be a credentialed scan, so really it's just going to be sending out different types of messages to see what ports respond back, and hopefully those ports will also be responding back with different types banners and things like that, so we're able to determine what version of software is running on things. So we got this. Let's go back to scans. Let's kick this off. So while this is running, let's talk a little bit about IMDSv2, since this was mentioned kind of in the breakdown of what this room is. So launch a template, then switch to pentesting user to solve the challenge, and it's IMDSv2 challenge. Bypass the metadata controls to obtain the temporary access keys, which you can then use to find the flag. So if you aren't familiar with what IMDSv2 is, let's go take a look over here. So within AWS, and specifically when we're talking about EC2 instances, there's ways to be able to pull different types of metadata about the device and the session token that is being used by that particular EC2 instance. So what that really means in a lot of cases is that there's roles within AWS that have certain types of permissions. In order for EC2 instances to be able to do certain things, like let's say it was to pull or push data to S3 or to interact with lambdas or different things like that, the actual EC2 instance needs to have a certain role that has permissions to interact with those other services. And so in the past, we used to use IMDSv1, which you could then just request the particular tokens. You'd get that, you'd be good to go. They moved to IMDSv2, which is now session oriented. It has a time limit with the particular token that you get back, and there's some other things that you need to do to actually be able to query these instances to be able to get the necessary information. So normally what we would do if we actually had access to the EC2 instance, so let's say we were able to use SSM to connect in, we could just use a few of these different commands. Pretty much it's a curl command. This is the metadata IP address that's used on the box for itself. There's a header that we would add here to ask for a token. And this is a lifetime, I believe that's 6 hours. And we would actually be saving the output of this as a variable token. Then once we have that token, we would then do another curl. At this point, we're adding this header, which is a metadata token with the token value from that variable, to then query this here to get metadata. And then there's actually a whole bunch of other types of commands you can use adding on here to be able to get different types of information. And really what we're interested in getting here is the access key, the secret key, and the session token. And so if we can get all three of those from the EC2 instance, we can take those and in essence take over the role that has been assigned to that EC2 instance and leverage the permissions that that role has to do other things within the environment. So even though we only have read-only access with this pentesting user account, if we're somehow able to get access to the EC2 instance and run these commands, then we're able to actually get those three different components that we can then use to access the AWS API and query and pull different types of information. So that's kind of the overall goal of what we're going to be going for here. If you aren't familiar with this, I'm going to put a link for this in the video description, and you can kind of poke through this at your leisure. So let's go back. Got 5%. We'll hold off on this for a little bit, let this continue to do its thing, and we'll come back here in a few minutes. All right, so we see a bunch more stuff coming in here. It's almost 99% done, but I think we can kind of just push on through this. Don't necessarily have to wait for it to finish. So what we can see here, service detection, obviously the only thing we're going to be seeing here is port 80. But of interest, so it's running Apache and then PHP. So there's a few different ways that we could go about this. There's a lot of PHP critical patches missing here. If we wanted to, we could see if there's any RCEs or remote code exploitation types of things here, and then we could use something like Metasploit and look within the different exploits within that to see if there's something that matches. But based off of what we read before, it kind of said we don't necessarily need to do that. Most everything is able to be done through API calls and things like that. So I don't know that we're necessarily going to go that route, but it is good knowing that PHP is being used here. So what we could end up doing is looking for some PHP files and directories and use something like URLBuster or URLBuster to see what we can find on that open web interface. So let's hop back over into the other browser. So some things we could do here. Here is a good list. This is on GitHub of word lists that we can use for different types of directory or URL scanning software. It's under SecList Discovery Web Content. I'll put a link for this in the video description as well. And we have a whole bunch of different stuff here that we could look through. But we're talking about PHP. So we could maybe do a common.txt would be good. Let's see if there's common PHP file names would be good as well. So let's give that a try. I'll hop over into my web console here and run URLBuster and see if we can come up with some stuff. So let's go URLBuster W for the word list. Let's go common php.txt and then HTTP and then the IP address, which you remember was 52.38.246.241. All right, so we can do that. Have all that there. Let's let this run and see what we find. All right, so looking over at this, we see that we did end up getting something that came back, a hello.php. So let's go take a look and see what that looks like in the web browser. So we actually do get something back here. Okay. Let's see if we just go to the regular page. Yeah, okay, so that's a default, and then we get a hello PHP. So a lot of times different web pages or scripts or things like this is loaded from someplace else. It might not actually be on the individual server. And so we did see that we had an S3 bucket related to this room. We can go and see if we can maybe upload a hello.php document. Oftentimes, in order to get a website that might be pointed to something to point back to that, we're going to have to do like a reboot on it. So we could give that a try and see if this box is actually using S3 as a place to host different types of PHP documents. So yeah, let's go give that a try. We're going to move back over here to S3. And we have this token of gratitude bucket. Again, we tried uploading a different name thing, but the permissions might be related specifically to names of documents that are allowed to be uploaded. So let's open up PyCharm and take a look at doing some type of PHP scripting. Although I guess first we should take a look at how to write stuff in PHP. I actually already opened up some stuff up here. So we could just do like a PHP. This is what we need to do script-wise. To open it, close it, and then we could just do an echo. So we could just echo some text and see how that goes. I'm just going to copy this over drop this in here. Really, all I'm caring about is doing some type of echo. And we're just going to go, wow, this worked. And we'll see if it does. All right, so I'm going to save this, upload files. All right, so we got hello.php. We got that there. Let's see if this will take this. And it did. Okay, so that is a step in the right direction. So since that took that, let's move over to EC2 instance. We'll try to reboot it. Reboot instance. Successfully rebooted. This will normally take a minute or so for this to come up. And there we go. We see that it ended up popping up. So that means that that particular file, that hello.php, we're able to upload it into S3, and this particular EC2 instance is able to, or is loading that particular document whenever it gets rebooted. So if we go back and look at the particular IMDSv2 commands that we're looking at before, as far as getting a token, and then using that token to query the metadata service, what we need to do is figure out a way of how to take these commands that we would be using on the CLI and turn it into a PHP script that we can then re-upload to the S3 bucket, or reboot the box, and have that particular script be acted upon once the box is done rebooting. So one thing that we do have here that you can use is this exec command in PHP, which allows you to actually do different types of commands. So if you do exec and then whatever the command you want it to do, then it will run that, and then you can echo the output from the variable that you save there. So let's first see if this works. If it does, then we could probably end up doing something similar as far as just dropping those particular commands into an exec command. If not, then we'll have to come up with something else. So let's just do this. We actually will copy this whole thing over. So we're just going to go output. So we're just going to do pwd to see the present working directory. Very, very easy. Very simple. We'll just get rid of that. And we'll save that. And now we'll go back and run through the same process that we just did. So we're going to upload it to S3, reboot the box, and see if we get something from it. We're just going to go upload to overwrite that. And there we go, upload, successful. Go back to the EC2 instance, reboot it. Reboot successful, and now we wait. And wait for that to come back up, and then we'll go back and recheck this. Okay, so we now see that it came back up, and it doesn't have anything here on the screen. I see nothing in here, so if we're not seeing that command come through there, there's a chance that certain commands are being filtered on the back end, so the idea of us using that exec command might not work. So let's look for another option that might work for us. So we see that really here we're using just curl commands, and PHP actually does have its own way and version of doing curl commands. So I have some examples of that up here, so we could write something up that maybe would allow us to do what we need to do. So the basics of curl, so you're going to have a curl init to start the curl session. You're going to set some options, so that'd probably be where we're going to do some headers and things like that. The exec is going to actually start the session itself once we have the option set, and then once we're done to delete the variables and things like that, then it's a curl close. And I had this other thing here. So here we kind of see PHP, the URL that we're going to use, and then we name the variable for the curl init, then the curl setting the option, so we're calling that. Then the URL itself, calling that variable, return transfer true. Should be some other options for headers there. Then the curl exec, remember that's when we're actually running or executing the command itself. We're saving that under data and then closing it out. I worked through what this would need to be in order to match these different things. So let me bring that up and we can walk through what that script is going to look like. So I put this example here. I'm actually going to upload this to my GitHub. And I'll put a link for this in the video description so you can go and pull this down if you want to. So this was the first part of the command that we were looking at on the AWS documentation page. So it's, in essence, we're getting a variable for token, and we're getting that by doing a curl to this this URL with a header requesting the token, setting the time to live. So the URL portion of this is just going to be this here. The header that we're going to be using, we just have this set up, so we're just going to be taking the first one, so that's why we're using the 0 there with that variable. So it's just going to be that. Then the curl init, we're giving it this here, and then the option, so we're going to be doing the curl option URL pointing back to this. Return transfer is true. If we go back and we look at the documentation on the AWS page, this request needs to be a put. And then the HTTP header, we are using that variable and calling it there. So once we have that all together, then the data that we're going to be getting from that, we're going to be the curl exec and then calling that within here. What we want to do, though, is different than the other URLs or the other web pages we were looking at, is we actually want to see what that data is. So we're going to echo the data that we receive there. And that's going to get us that token ID, right? So the data that comes back from that, we're going to set as the token variable. And the next thing we're going to do is another curl, this time with the token variable that we've collected from that first curl command, and then sending it to this URL to actually get some of the metadata. So very similar to what we were doing up here. So we have a URL, again, with the header, but this time we're using this dot and then the variable. So we're taking whatever this variable is here and we're appending it to the end of this. Then we have same thing again, setting the options. So curl with the URL, return transfer. Difference between this one was a put, the rest of these are gets. So we're using that there. And then the header is what we have defined up here as far as the header and the specific token that we received. Again, this is the same. We're doing the curl exec, and then we're going to echo the data back. So we get to see that. Doing another page break here, so we can do another command. And this one here is where we're actually going to be getting the unique access key, secret key, and session token. So you'd have to do a little bit of research into how you go about getting these credentials. I've already done that, and you see that we're going under IAM, security credentials, and then the particular role that we're trying to get the security credentials for. So you would need to know what role is being assigned to that particular EC2 instance. Since this was the only one that was available in the challenge that was custom, then that's why we're kind of going with this. We're kind of assuming that. But there's some other tools you could do to actually narrow this down and make sure that you have the right thing. You could use a tool like Paku, which is a great tool for enumeration within AWS environments. But since this room really only had one thing, we're gonna go with what we know or feel that it's going to be. So we have that there. So again, URL, the whole thing, header again, is going to be this .token, and this should all look exactly the same as the one above. The only difference is the URL is different. And we're going to get all that data back, and then we are going to close the curl. So let's take this whole bit. We're going to copy it. We're going to move it over into this hello.php. And now we're going to re-upload this to S3 and reboot the EC2 instance. All right, so we're going to go under the bucket, upload it. Should be good. Go back to the EC2 instance and reboot it. Here we go. Select that instance and reboot. Now, while that does that, we can go over here and we can reload this and wait for this to come back up. Okay, that looks like it's done. Let's go see if we ended up getting back what we wanted. And there we go. So this was the token that came through in the first line, and then this here was the metadata request that we did, and then this here has the access ID, the secret key, and then all of the full token or security or session token that we wanted. So with these 3 bits of information, we can then go ahead and take over the role that's being used on this particular machine. And we're assuming that with this role on the machine, it should have access to a whole bunch of different things, especially considering the fact that we know that it's pulling down this hello.php from the S3 bucket. We're assuming that hopefully it should have access to the S3 bucket to be able to pull down other things, and then we can get to that flag.txt document. So the easiest way to take this and use this, at least from my perspective, if you had AWS CLI somewhere, you could do that. Here within the browser, we could use CloudShell. The only thing is, in this case, I don't think we can use CloudShell with this account or with the Pentesting user account. I don't think it has permissions for it. I wouldn't be surprised since it's, yeah, so we can't do that. So what I would recommend doing, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to log into another AWS account completely separate from this, and then use some commands to actually import in the particular access key, secret key, and session token, and then be able to use that to access the system, hopefully. So let me bring that up in another web browser, and then we will hop through some AWS CLI commands in CloudShell. All right, so I have my other CloudShell environment set up in a completely different AWS account. What we can do, AWS STS get caller identity. So in running that command, it shows that there's no security token included, so not really able to go and interact with other environments or things outside of the one that I'm already in, which is just completely different account. So to get the other access key, secret access key, and session token key, there's a few different commands that we're going to use there. Export AWS commands. Kind of pop these up here in a second. I'm going to move these over. So you see it's AWS secret key ID, AWS secret access key, and then the session token. I'm going to go just pull that. You got to be careful. Sometimes with the copy and paste in here, it can get kind of wonky. So if it doesn't work the first time, it likes to have it all on like one line. So I found copying and pasting it from different documents sometimes doesn't quite work as well. So we're just going to go and drop this here. Okay, so that should be good. Now I should be able to, all right, now I should be able to run that get caller identity. And you see here that we now have this particular assumed role. So we have the role that was being used on that EC2 instance. So what that means is that I should be able to go and get that particular flag.txt document from the S3 bucket. So a few different things we can do with that. So I should be able to look and see AWS S3 LS. Should show you buckets that you have, but again, depending upon the permissions the role has, this may or may not work. Oh, I actually think I typed that incorrectly. Let's try that again. AWS S3 LS. Yeah, okay. Access denied. So I'm not able to do that. But what we can do is go get the particular URL, and we can try and see if we can just copy that particular file down. So let's go back over to S3. We're going to go take a look at this bucket. We're going to go find the URL for that flag.txt. So let's do the S3 URI. Copy that. Let's move back over into the other browser. Should be able to go AWS S3, copy the name of that, and we'll just drop it right into the folder that we're in. So we were able to download it. Now let's take a look and see if we can see if it's there. We got a flag.txt right there. Let's make sure that that is recent. Yep, right now. So that's good. Okay, so let's take a look, see if we can see what's inside. And there we go. There is our flag. Very cool. So we can go back and we can copy that into the token of gratitude page over on Pentesting.Cloud. And you drop it down here. But since I just did this yesterday, it shows I already solved it. And yeah, that would be it. Let's go and bring up the CloudFormation template. We can take a look at that real quick. And we can wrap this thing up. Okay, so we have some parameters. We saw those. We actually had to choose one for all of those. There's a resource that was created, that S3 bucket, the security group, which ended up allowing us just port 80. We're referencing the subnets. Yep. EC2 role. This was the role that was attached to the particular EC2 instance that we ended up using the metadata service to end up getting the actual session token. And then we're able to assume that role. We see that it was allowing actions on that S3 bucket. So we were able to go and view. Instance profile. So this is kind of interesting. So this is a launch template for the EC2 instance, the particular AMI that was used. Again, this would tie back to kind of some of those vulnerabilities that might have been on there that we could have possibly exploited. The interesting thing here, though, is the user data, and we can see that there's this script that's used, this bash script, so it's echoing from the S3 bucket, whatever's there, into a root bucket underscore name.txt, and then running this init.sh script. So something in there was allowing stuff to be pulled from the S3 bucket. Again, so this is probably how that hello.php was being loaded. And then as far as the IAM user, the pen testing user, we can kind of see the permissions, and we were able to figure these out, but the permissions was a put object, so the only thing we were allowed to do is upload a hello.php file, and then the other thing was reboot EC2 instances. Everything else in there was view only. So to kind of wrap it all up, right, what we did was we logged in with a very low-level privileged user, did some enumeration to see what was going on, saw the S3 bucket, saw that we couldn't really do anything with it, saw the EC2 instance, saw that we could reboot it, and was able to see that there was a security group allowing port 80 inbound access from our individual IP address. From that, we ended up doing some scanning. Again, you could have used Nmap or something like that. I ended up using Nessus just because it was readily available and we were able to see that it was running PHP. From that, we went and downloaded a word list related to PHP and ran URLBuster to enumerate through some potential web pages that might be there on the server. We were able to find a hello.php page that was there. From that, we ended up testing to see if we could actually upload a hello.php document to S3, which we could. From that, we started to test through what we could or could not actually put in a script. We tried to do the execute shell command, couldn't do that, so we ended up having to use some PHP curl commands to end up getting a MDSv2 token, which allowed us to then query the metadata and be able to get the access key, secret key, and session token that we were then able to leverage to take over that particular role identity and access the S3 bucket that we didn't have permissions to be able to pull down the flag .text document, and that was it. So yeah, hope this was useful. It was a lot of fun. Go check out Pentesting.Cloud. Really great website. Excited to see the rest of the different rooms that they're going to be coming out with there. Make sure you smash the like button, share the video with your friends, all that other good stuff. Go get at it, and we'll talk soon. All right, bye.